Hi class. Today what we're going to do is review what we've reviewed in class, and that's the basics of labor law. You've seen it on Bluescape, but now what I'm going to do is go through it with you in lightboard fashion so that you can listen to it over and over again and eventually it'll make some sense. First of all, we're only going to cover for the immediate future private sector. So if we have a quiz or an exam, it will be on the private sector. So concentrate on the National Labor Relations Act. And the National Labor Relations Act is an act that was promoted and passed for labor peace. We had a lot of clashes between unions and employers that were brutally violent. And so they came up with this idea, hey, how do we handle this conflict? How do we resolve this conflict? Well, they came up with this idea of collective bargaining. And so collective bargaining is enabled between employer and union through the National Labor Relations Act. And who administers it? The National Labor Relations Board. Okay, and they're an administrative agency, and they have 5 members on the National Labor Relations Board, and under them they have an agency that enforces the act as well. Now, as I said to you before, remember this is private sector, and so we're thinking, like I said in class, of the Ford, we're thinking of GM, we're thinking of the National Football League, we're thinking of, let's say, airline pilots. All of those can be unionized. And then the employer has to bargain with them, and that's called collective bargaining. And here we've got it, collective bargaining. Now, what do you bargain over? We talked about this in class as well. Wages, hours, terms and conditions of employment. Wages are simple, they're money. Hours, that can be hours that they work, hours that they don't work. It can also be overtime. And then terms and conditions of employment. What we hear about most in the news right now, and which is most critical for most folks in the collective bargaining units, is their pay, their pension, and their health insurance. Now, what happens if you violate the National Labor Relations Act? Well, that's called an unfair labor practice, or we call it a ULP. And as I put here, it's a violation of the National Labor Relations Act. What can be some ULPs? Well, one can be the union or the employer's refusal to bargain with the other side. The other one can be, as I talked about before, where the employer and the union collude to go after somebody because neither of them like that employee who's a member of the union. So this is the first tape. Thank you very much.